All right. Well, thank you. Welcome everybody to our May Westbank Real Estate Investors Meetup. Happy to see everybody back. Last month was just as thrilling. We had Jordan. What was the last guest? John, not Jordan. Yeah, John Snyder. And that video is already up on the YouTube channel of Westbank Real Estate Investors. So do the YouTube search for Westbank Real Estate Investors. But today, also thrilled and excited. So we need to welcome Oliver Doxtater. I got it right?
Yep.
To today's session. So Oliver is not just any rehabber and realtor. He's a powerhouse in high-end historic properties, blending craftsmanship with market savvy. Whether you flip houses, list properties, or invest in rentals, trust me, you definitely want to hear his story today. So everybody put your hands together for Oliver Doxtater.
That's right. Thank you.
I got it right.
Yes, thank you.
Got it right. So Oliver, how does somebody like you with that background even get started in real estate?
Yeah, so let me go back to 2007. I moved to New Orleans to go to Tulane for law school, and really didn't love it, but ended up sticking with it. Practiced law for 5 years and decided to give it up. Went into fundraising for nonprofits, and through that process met a lot of successful people. Some of them were heavily involved in real estate, and thought that it was something I would like to get into. One of those days I asked someone, like how they got started, right? And they said to me, well, there's no lesson plan, but you can come to the job site and see what you pick up, and I'll give you $12 an hour. So having graduated from Tulane law and practiced law for 5 years, and still having a fairly successful career as a fundraiser, I went out at 7 a.m. every Saturday morning and Sunday morning Saturday mornings at 7 a.m. and worked for $12 an hour as a laborer, so that I could, see what I picked up. I thought it was a cool career, and had some lucky breaks, and that's really how it got started.
So we had Nathaniel Phillips on, who is also an attorney that flipped from attorney to a full-time developer. What's some of the parallels that you guys see in law and real estate that make that mindset attracted to real estate?
Well, I think that there's a lot of strategy involved, which you can get from the legal field. I think to be a successful developer, you have to do a lot of due diligence and research and understand. Well, for me, at least, it's important to understand the rules, the code, historic credits, taxes, a lot of higher level stuff that I'm able to juice profits with. Yeah.
That experience with $12 an hour, what was the story behind that? So the objective was what? To be learn the ropes, be a project manager, be an investor. What was the objective, and what did you actually take away from it?
That's a really good question. I don't know that there was much of a defined goal. It was to just get in there, see how it worked. Through that, I met some really great tradespeople. Met one wholesaler in particular who I ended up partnering with on several deals, and then, met my GC through him, and then through the GC, I've been able to be, make numbers work a lot better. Met my architect through him as well. So it was really the parallels I can draw from my fundraising and from that experience are really networking is part of my zone of genius, right? And so it's using that to gain respect from the flipper, but also to meet other people.
Yeah. So out of that experience, next steps were what to get into your first investment? So you learn the ropes, you learn the language, you learn the code, law of the land. Now, what's the story behind the first acquisition, and what was that experience like?
Yeah, so the person that I met, my former business partner, Ryan, we're still very good friends. He just moved to Texas and is doing land development there. We were working together to try, we were doing mailings, right? So we were focused on marketing to tax sale properties. In fact, sort of the opposite of what Nathaniel does. He purchases tax sales, if I'm not mistaken, and we would reach out to people who had their taxes purchased, and offer them a solution to not lose their property to tax sale, right? And so through that process, we did some deals and wholesaled a couple deals, and then he was emailed from a mailer that he had sent out years ago. He was done flipping. It was in St. Roch, and it was this like really beautiful Victorian historic house, and I was like, I'm gonna get credits, state and federal tax credits. I'm gonna STR the other side. It's a double. I'm gonna live in it. It was I can't believe that people were living in this house. It was two dudes on one side, and then like a bunch. It was a lot of. How do I put this?
Were they squatters or the actual residents?
They were paying rent, but it was like 12 people, and it was like gutter punks, right? So anyway, I was like, I thought I was being like this really cool guy. I was like, I'll give you guys till the end of the year to finish out your lease, and they ended up like just destroying the place. But we ended up moving in, and it finished out the deal, and I still own that property. The street's beautiful now. They actually redid the street recently. It's really nice. It was a good property, and I learned a ton on it. It was a lot of fun.
So I like to debrief that or break that story down. So it came in through the mailer. That's where the lead came from. Mm-hmm. And what did it look like with you vetting it to make sure that it was even something that made sense? Because this is your very first one out of making $12 an hour and building your network. So what made you pull the trigger, and how did you underwrite that with that being your first one to try to mitigate the risk?
That's a really good question. Mm-hmm. So I leaned heavily on Ryan, right? As he was like, this is a good deal. But basically I reached out to the lady, negotiate the owner. She lived in Tennessee. She was like, I'm not happy with the way I'm taking care of this property. Anyway, it was like a feeling, it's like the price was right. We paid I paid $125 and had a construction budget in hand before closing, with this GC who came highly recommended from multiple people, including the original person that I had learned from. He uses him on all his deals. And I just felt confident. I listened to all the Bigger Pockets podcasts to that point. Had worked on a job site for almost 2 years, had been doing mailing and researching properties for almost 2 years. So, I put in the hours on the weekends, in the mornings, in the evenings, like outside of work, at work. It was all I could think about, And so when the opportunity presented itself, I already knew.
So the exit on this one, when you say we moved in, this was a completely rental property, or you house hacked it, stayed in one side?
Yeah. So
what was the strategy? Mm-hmm.
That's great. So we house hacked it, renovated it completely. So gut renovation.
Both sides.
Both sides. We my girlfriend at the time, who I had just met, I think 6 months earlier, right before I bought it. She was super supportive. She lived in New York at the time, super supportive. She moved down. We're renovating it, and then it's COVID, and the renovations are like during COVID. It took forever, but we moved in. It was great. I think we moved in 21. We bought it in like early 20. Honestly, I can't remember the dates.
Yeah. So did you start with the end in mind? So you underwrote this because the owner-occupied financing is totally different from investor financing.
Yeah, that's right. And also, at the time, it was easy to get an STR permit. I don't even know if there were permits or not. It was all legal, above board.
And STR is
short-term
rental
Yeah.
permits. Okay.
Thank you. So, using those numbers for underwriting, and it was really close to the French Quarter, I knew I was going to come out ahead. It ended up working really well. It was a big hit as soon as we put it on Airbnb. One of the things that has been a great strategy for me is utilizing other people and what they're good at. So I use a designer on all my properties because it's something that I can do. I think I have a good eye, but it's not what I'm best at. And it can feel like a struggle, whereas like for these other people, it's like what they love doing. And so like being able to allow people to be amazing at what they love doing is like such a rewarding part of this career.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So it sounds like team building has been in your DNA your entire real estate career, from meeting the contractor, meeting the wholesaler, meeting your mentor. So what was how did that turn out, right? Because you still
I still So
you still live in it?
No, I do not.
Okay.
Live in it anymore.
So how did that end up unfolding with moving out of that other side and short-term rental?
Yeah, so it's no longer a short-term rental, but we have long-term tenants on both sides. Our interest rate's like a 3.25%, so it still cash flows. There's no reason to sell it. It's a beautiful property in an appreciating area, and I feel really positively about St. Roch. Actually, maybe that's localized, right? Like I feel like between Claiborne and St. Claude is just if you drive down there any evening, it is so crowded with cars everywhere. It's like it's like can't miss if you can make the numbers work and hold on to it.
Yeah. So how do you underwrite? How do you underwrite now with the gray area of short-term rental? So now a deal that would have been a home run without that premium of short-term rental income is just back to the basics.
Yeah, I don't hold a lot of properties, right? The focus of my business now is really on development, and we'll just buy, and sell.
Mm-hmm.
If there is an opportunistic licensing, then we take advantage of that, obviously. But yeah, we're not really focused on short-term rental strategy anymore.
Gotcha. I'm glad you mentioned the comparison with Nathaniel's strategy and yours. For the wholesaler or the rehabber or the landlord that's looking to purchase distressed property, what's the difference between marketing for tax-delinquent properties to purchase directly from the owner and purchasing tax-delinquent properties to purchase the taxes? How do you describe the difference?
Yeah, so I'm not super familiar with the process of purchasing the taxes because I've actually never done that. But you can see on public records where taxes have been purchased, right? And so you can market to those people and say, hey, look, if you don't pay your taxes in 3 years, first of all, your taxes have been purchased, right? Do you know that? Okay. If not, you need to pay. You need to pay them. You have 3 years to get current. This is the price. This is what you need to pay. Call the city, right? Call the city. Get current if you want to keep your house. If you are unable to pay and you'd like to get something out of your property, then that's something we can talk about, and I can make you a fair offer.
So that's the reason that was your target. That was another layer of distress.
Yeah, exactly. So and there's a short fuse on it too, right? Whereas like some distress, can just stay, right? And I mean, that was a part of the strategy that was a very long time ago. I mean, very long. It was about 5 years ago. So I think I've purchased only one property through that marketing. But it worked. Honestly, it worked out so well. One of the things that I love is when the people or family members of the, sometimes it falls into tax delinquency because, the owner has passed away, the heirs are hard to find, et cetera, et cetera. So one of the other really gratifying things about doing this job is when you renovate a property. It's a historic old property. People come by and they're like, oh, my grandmother or my father would have been so proud of the way this looks now. It's really rewarding.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the best things that we can do is to honor one of the great things about renovating these properties and living in New Orleans is we're just stewards of these things, right? They're going to live on. Well, hopefully, if we do a good job, they're going to live on way, way past us, right? And so it's a way to honor the people that have worked on it in the past, and to also honor the history of the city, and also create something beautiful. New Orleans wouldn't be what it is if it wasn't for this beautiful architecture, and so being able to save that is really, really cool.
Yeah. Strategic wise, where did the historic angle come from? Did you just fall into it because the St. Roch property just so happened to be historic? Talk to us about how you fell into the historic space.
Yeah. Well, look, the tax credits are great. If you can follow the rules, then you can get up to 45% now of your qualifying construction costs back, right? So that's a significant amount of money. Now these properties cost a lot more to renovate, but you're gonna see that value. You're gonna see that value when you sell it too, because studies show that historic properties appreciate faster and sell for more than stuff built in the 70s and 80s.
When you say 40%, is it 40 or 40?
It's 45%. So 25% is from the state, which you can sell, and then 20% is from the federal government, which you have to hold the property for 5 years to get.
So we had a guest, James Roch, who focuses on historic tax credits. Also, what is that from an investor side? What you doing a development? What does it look like to have those tax credits? Is it a portal? Is it tokens that you get? How do you know how much you have? How do you trade them?
Right.
What's the functions of having tax credits and some of the benefits?
Well, so I guess the way it works is you have to jump through a lot of hoops, right? First of all, but once you've finished the project, there's James would explain this a lot better than me.
Yes,
but there's three parts, right? So there's the part one to certify that's historic property, part two, which is where you lay out your plan, and then part three, where you send them pictures of the work that you've done, and it gets approved. Once you've done that, either the National Park Service, which is the federal government, or SHPO, which is the State Historic Preservation Office for Louisiana, will approve it. And then if it's just through SHPO, they'll say it's approved. Go to LDR, Louisiana Department of Revenue, and send them your receipts, and then they'll issue you a certificate. Sorry, this is very long-winded, but once they issue you this certificate, it's as good as cash against your Louisiana tax liability, or you can sell it to a broker for whatever they'll give you.
So what does that secondary market look like to resell it? Because strategically, some people use this as a form of fundraising to turn it into cash.
Yeah, so I know on bigger deals you can work with banks to be the mezzanine debt, basically, and they'll loan against your tax credits. I haven't done that yet. Excuse me. But I know that at the end of my project, once I've achieved the tax credits, part three, I can go out to I have brokers that I work with. They'll give you 89 to 90 cents on the dollar. That's, for 25% of your construction costs, that's really solid. So that really helps make deals work.
So,
then on the federal side, they'll give you basically take your documentation from National Park Service and what you send to LDR, and it's my understanding, again, not a CPA, I hire one because I'm not good at that stuff. They'll give you a credit for 5 years, and it's good as cash against your taxes. So if you owe $40,000 and you've got a $40,000 credit, you don't owe taxes.
So hypothetically, because you're a realtor also, I give you a call. Hey, Oliver, I'm interested in this property. What are the steps do we take to know if it has historic tax credits? Because it could be in the historic area, but still not. Those two are not the same to be in the historic area and have historic tax credits. So how do we research that? Whether I'm a wholesaler, if I'm your client, how do we research that?
Yeah, so you would call me, we would go see the property, and I would look at like the doors, the door trim, the windows, like these windows obviously are not historic. But there, it's like a general look and feel, right? You can, if it looks like it was renovated in the 80s, it's probably not going to qualify, right? But if they just put sheetrock on top of everything, then maybe it will. Sometimes you have to pull back some layers and stuff. A lot of it is the exterior and really the windows in the front two bays. So the first two rooms in the property are pretty determinative of whether or not it'll qualify. Again, talk to a tax credit consultant or an architect that specializes in that. Like I bought a property last week, and I went to see it with my architect today to talk about, plan, et cetera. Will it qualify?
So identify. So first of all, before I even call you, look for exterior. Exterior features.
Right. Like if you go into the historic core of New Orleans, you walk around, you are going to know what's a historic property, right? From the exterior, and then once you get inside, you can look at the windows, you can look at the doors, you look at the trim, the molding, and that should help tell the rest of the story.
So, digging a little bit deeper on the tax credit side, how can we leverage those credits as a part of our capital stack, right? So if we're raising money for regular development, what are some of the advantages now that we have these tax credits that we could either bait in some partners or bait in a bank that wouldn't be attracted if it was just a regular duplex in the east versus a duplex on Napoleon Avenue?
Yeah. I can't really speak to that, honestly, because I sell the credits or use them myself.
Okay.
But I could see where it would be attractive to someone. Essentially, you're selling the credits, but maybe they give you an even bigger discount, right? Because it's like they are going to have to wait, whereas the broker that I'm selling it to, it's like already done, right? So maybe they'll give you 80 cents on the dollar, but you're getting that right away.
I think you answered the question. Okay. So you use, instead of holding on to your credits, which you could, you turn them into cash.
That's right.
Which, if you borrowed it from somebody, you can kind of give them a guarantee that, hey, I could pay you back with interest because.
Absolutely.
So you did answer the question. So you can speak to it. So that's good.
Crushed it.
Awesome. So fast forward, you are an investor now. You're in the game with the St. Roch property.
Yep.
How do you get into becoming a realtor? What's that story?
Yeah. So I stayed at the fundraising job until 2023. So I've been full-time real estate for about 2 years, but through that time, and so the first project was in 2020.
St. Roch.
Second, St. Roch, and then I did 2 more in quick succession. One on the same street, which my wife was like, this property that was like covered, like only cats lived there. It was, boarded up. There were like 15 cats on the porch. She was like, Oliver, you have to buy this property. And it was owned by, this is a good story. It was owned by a nonprofit. I had to go look on the Secretary of State website. I found it was like one of those rabbit hole deals that you can only do when you're a newbie, right? So I called the guy. He was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot about that property." I was like, "Okay, well, can I buy it?" He was like, "Yeah, meet me over there." And so I ended up buying it for like lot value minus the price to tear it down. I can't believe it, that deal. And then I put like 200 into it and it appraised for 450. It was crazy. And then the other one was Intramay and was that tax sale deal. So repeat the question. I'm sorry.
So you getting into the story of becoming a realtor.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Now that you're an investor.
So I was doing these deals and I wanted to, save the 3%, which, I don't know if it's worth it, but I have a lot of friends that buy and sell real estate, and fortunately, they've decided to work with me on some stuff, and I think that getting my real estate license allowed me to move into higher end developments, right, and more luxury historic flips, renovations, because I can see what's selling, what's a valuable addition, like what styles people are putting into their bathrooms, kitchens, to achieve the right after repair value.
Good. What other benefits have you seen with being a realtor and a developer?
Well, realtor and developer, I mean, it's nice for spreading out your risk, right? Like, when you're doing historic developments, the timeline is 6 to 9 months per project. So, being able to sell some property in between there it definitely flattens out that cash flow curve.
While you wait.
Right. While you wait, exactly. So I can put some food on the table in between those big pops.
So what is the short-term rental guidelines with that whole switch from what we went through from 2021 all the way until now with the lottery? How has that impacted your business model with using short-term rentals, in these historic properties?
Yeah, well, so we have one we have one tax credit property. God, jeez. We have one STR, we have one short-term rental, and it actually took so long to go through the process. I purchased this property. They announced that they're going to have the lottery, and then there was like this extended period of time, right? I think where they didn't decide to go through with the lottery, right? So there was all this litigation, and during that time period, I was just sitting on the property because I knew once you started construction, you couldn't enter the lottery. So at a certain point, I was just like, okay, well, we got to move forward. And then once we start construction, they announced that they'll do the lottery. Anyway, we finished the development, got the state and federal credits for it, and started the process of going through the special exemption, right? Which is you have to have a neighborhood meeting and talk to the neighbors and tell them your plans and get buy-in. And it was my wife's property, and she did all that, and she's much nicer than me, and much more attractive. And so she, that all worked out great. We finally got approval on like March 17th. We did the interior design, painted the entire interior because we had done all white in case we had to sell it, and it came out beautifully. We put it on Airbnb like a week and a half before Jazz Fest. Ended up getting booked for all of Jazz Fest, and now every weekend is for the rest of the month is booked. It's really been remarkable. It's been a lot of it's very exciting on that one.
So now, putting on your strategic attorney viewpoint or your attorney lens, For people that still want to participate in Orleans Parish and the short-term rentals, if I'm your client, how do you advise me on how to back into purchasing a property to improve my chances of actually winning the lottery? Kind of what's your mental checklist to make sure that you are at least positioned well enough to be considered to have a short-term rental in the city?
Sure. So first of all, definitely not an attorney, so don't take this as legal advice. I would just go to the short-term rental website. They've got a map. I actually looked at it last night. It shows every block that doesn't have an STR on it. You know, I mean, if you buy a property on one of those blocks, then apply for the lottery. Because at this point, those people probably aren't going to be applying. You know, that's really all I can say about that.
So you should buy a short-term rental.
I mean, no, I don't. What I'm saying is that if there's no other STRs on that block, then there's probably not going to be when you decide to go through with applying for the lottery.
Yep. No, I'm just kidding with you. But I think that still is a good strategy. So for the people that have no idea on how New Orleans is working with short-term rentals, so the actual first step should be checking with the website.
Yeah.
Because we know that Orleans Parish is good with sharing information with the public and is probably accurate from what we know. But I
would
think
definitely
that's a good first step.
I would definitely reach out to the STR, the short-term rental office, confirm the information that's on the website, and then work with a consultant, Zach Smith or
Zach Smith was a
Michael. I'm blanking on the other. There's lots of land use consultants in the city that are worth their fee for sure.
So as far as building a team, if short-term rentals is still attractive, you definitely want to have a land consultant to cut that curve. You want to check the city website, shop on blocks that don't have short-term rentals.
Right. You also want to have a designer. You want to be good at hospitality. Like it's not like it used to be that you could have a property and put anything inside of it, put any furniture in it and put it on Airbnb and it would make money, right? That's not the case. It's actually difficult. And when done right, I think it's great for the guests, the owners, and the city because it showcases, it showcases the best of New Orleans, right? Like, I mean, this is a hospitality city, right? And if people love where they're sleeping and they get to go out and enjoy the city, they're going to have a great time. And that's what we need. We need people coming here and having a good time and feeling great about New Orleans.
That's my first time hearing that. So how does design impact owning a short-term rental? Because you're absolutely right. Even when I did it, if it was a duplex, it's a shotgun, we go get used mattresses, we throw beds in, we put it on Airbnb. But you saying that it's more beneficial when you have a strategy and a team. From what you've seen as a realtor and developer, how does design impact?
Yeah, it's the most.
That's good.
People buy it with their eyes before they even go inside the property. Everyone's on Zillow. Everyone's, when you're on Airbnb, people make a decision, or they're on the app. They make a decision. Less than 10 seconds. It's like, oh, nope. Design's the most important thing. Don't tell my designer I said that. No, but seriously, having a strong team is the most important part of renovations and development, I think. You've got to have someone that understands the land use, whether that's a consultant or your architect. You've got to have an architect that can help you make sure that the flow of your property makes sense for the modern buyer, even though it looks historic, and still checks all the boxes for the tax credit people. And then, having someone that has a great eye for design that makes, all of those other parts of the construction sing, right? Because listing photos and staging that really brings out the most important parts of the property. That's if you want to get top dollar for your property, I mean, it's like with these people, these individuals are well worth their money, and a good realtor is really worth their money as well. I mean, I'm not like, I would list my own properties, but other people are so good at selling real estate, and it's when I see listings that are not well positioned for the market and it's still like a nice property, I mean, that can be, it's a disadvantage, obviously, to the seller, right?
Talk to us about fundraising. So at one point that was your day job where you fundraised the entire day for a corporation. What are some of the parallels, or what is your strategy or approach with fundraising for real estate? And is there an advantage with fundraising for historic properties versus just regular properties?
Sure. Well, I've only done one non-historic property, so I couldn't really, and I did fundraise for it, but the experience in fundraising was obviously beneficial, right? Like you have to get comfortable asking people for money, asking people for advice, asking for people to make connections, and that's much like, if you're in sales, it's all about repetition, getting comfortable with that process. Asking someone to fund a deal at a rate that is advantageous to me, or works for them and me. I mean, it takes some practice and some getting used to. I think that, much like I said, with design and historic properties being more valuable, or appreciating more, I think that people want, or my hope is that people want to support the rehabilitation of these properties, right? And so, they want to make money, but when a blighted property, and most of the properties that I renovate are not like, they're blighted. It's like they're set for demolition from the city, and we're able to like turn them into something that sells for $370 a square foot. And it's like, people love seeing that, and it makes the entire block better, right? The entire neighborhood. A bad property can bring down a beautiful street.
So in its most basic form, if I'm a wholesaler, if I'm a realtor, even a property manager, I get access to deals all the time. How do you coach me up to even begin the conversation to let somebody know, hey, I have a deal, it's worth $450, I'm getting it for $60? How does that conversation sound with even trying to raise money, or even begin the conversation with raising money from your experience? How would you walk them through those steps to have that conversation?
Well, I would present them with my analysis. I would show them, well, if you haven't done any deals, that's a different story, but I would show them my prior work. I would say, this is what I've raised money at in the past. These were the results. And that's literally what I do. I have a deck that I send to people, and I'm like, this is what we've done in the past, and I'd love to work with you on this. And usually, well, sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no, sometimes they say not right now, and that's okay. Someone's playing taps. Yeah.
So for my wholesalers, my realtors, property managers in the room, just run your numbers.
Yeah, know your
and your skill set is also, part of your experience if you never done a deal before.
Yeah, and if you're a wholesaler and you've got something that's historic under contract, I mean, and you want feedback on it, you can definitely reach out to me. I'm happy to be a resource. I learned everything I know from other people. That's what's really cool about this career is like my mentor says, like, there's no course book, right? It's like you get to figure it out through other people. And I know Steve's big on this, is like, it's all about helping. It's not a zero. It's definitely not a zero sum business. There is enough opportunity for blighted property in New Orleans for everybody, and like that's the thing is like everyone wins when someone does a good job renovating property. You don't, I think another thing that was stressed to me is like you if you're a wholesaler, you want to leave enough meat on the bone that the purchaser can do a great job so that they can come back to you and buy more. There's I'll leave it at that.
So lessons learned so far. So from 2020 until now, from your development career, what are some of the mistakes that you made that stand out, that you learned from, that kind of give you superhuman strength now going into your next deals?
Well, just having done a lot of different, worked on a lot of different construction where I'm surprised by what the team has been able to achieve. Like I know that the state of the property is not going to be the issue as long as I can de-risk it from a purchase price standpoint. So just knowing your construction numbers is huge in development, obviously, because if you're off on your construction budget, this is another great turn of phrase, is like you can't out renovate a bad purchase, right? Like you make your money on the buy, and then you got to stick to your numbers on the renovation, and you should come out ahead as long as you've done a good job on both of those things, and the market doesn't completely fall apart. But I mean, I think we're going to be okay.
So your day-to-day in construction. So tell us about where you are right now with development, your consulting, project management. What is it exactly that you consult with, and what does day-to-day look like for you at this point with,
Sure.
with that niche?
Yeah, so I've got we're doing 6 construction projects right now. And they were all gut renovations. 2 of them are with a partner on big projects. One is going to be sold. One we're going to keep because we were able to qualify for state and federal historic tax credits, and we like the area that it's in. The other 4 are fee development work, which is where another person owns the property. They bring me in as the developer, utilize my team and my resources. Like I said, the designer, the architect, the GC, me as basically project manager, consultant, and we take a fee. They pay my team, and there's less risk, obviously, on the financial side. That's been a nice business line. That started about a year ago, and that came about because a property owner that I had met was interested in my deals, asked me how I was making money. He was like, because I showed him my numbers, he's like, how are you doing this? I walked him through the process, and he was like, I've got this property I'd like you to take a look at. And I've done 3 projects for him, and doing 2 for other people as well. One is actually my designer. He had used 2 contractors before me. One, he fired both of them. One of them tried to get the city to tear down the property because he thought it was so far gone. And I was like, dude, this is nothing. And we're going to be done in about 3 weeks. So, about 6 months of construction. It's amazing. It's going to be a beautiful showpiece for him. And I get to feel good about helping out a friend.
In 2025, what are you seeing investors overlook on the construction side? So as far as, scope of work, expectations, because this is a different market than it was even 5 years ago with pricing and availability of labor. What should be the expectation now if I'm getting multiple bids or doing a scope of work on a historic project? What should be the expectation, and what are people overlooking right now that you're seeing as a consultant?
Well, I think that where people get in trouble is they just overpay for their properties, right? You should know when you're under contract, you should be doing your due diligence with your contractor or whoever's on your team, or you should be, using your subs to get solid bids and, as close to fixed price bids as you can, and, have a good enough relationship with them that you can hold them accountable to those numbers. Beyond that, I think there's tons of opportunity out there. There's stuff on them. I've bought, the last 2 big projects that I bought were on the MLS, and they were scary looking, but they were there, and I think that other people just overlook them. I would say that people overestimate how difficult some foundation work or other structural issues might be, as long as you have a solid team and an architect who uses an engineering consultant. It can all be managed as long as you think about it and plan from the start.
We hear people get burned by general contractors as investors over and over and over, right? So now in 2025, how do you reduce that risk of even subs? So even GCs can get burned by subs. So what are some of your mental checklists now to make sure that this is not somebody that is going to do a little bit of work and take away and run off with the cash, or try to get your property torn down?
Right.
Right. So how are you vetting contractors and subs at this point?
Well, I've worked with the same contractor on all my deals, so I've been really blessed to have this relationship. If I were going to start working with someone new, I still pay for all my materials pretty much directly. I pay him for the labor that he brings, and that's worked out really well. That way, I know what I'm paying for, right? I would not, don't pay for your full job up front. Give 20%. If that way, if they run off 20% and not 100%.
Right.
I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you because I haven't had that problem. But also work with a bank, because if you're working with a bank, they're not going to let you give money for work that's not performed. If you have that resource.
And unforeseen. So before we move on construction, a lot of people also get sucker punched by the unforeseen. So even during that 10, 14-day due diligence period, you walked it with your contractor, you close on a property, you open one wall, you move one footing, one thing gets moved around, and now, here comes code enforcement or something like that.
Right.
Right. So how do you reduce the risk of unforeseen, especially on big projects that you approaching?
Well, I think you just got to pad your budget. Have a contingency fee or have a contingency allotment in there of 10%, maybe more if you're inexperienced, 20%. And if the numbers still work with the contingency in there, then you're probably gonna be fine.
Yeah.
Don't again, not an attorney.
Yeah, but you you have experience in the field. You do it every day, and for historic areas, there's normally some type of governing body, whether it's HDLC or if you're in Harahan, Gretna, or Mary, there's always something governing these projects. What's kind of your philosophy on dealing with historic district governing bodies?
Well, I think that Steve and I were talking about this earlier. It's like, if it's hard, that's probably a good thing, because you're gonna have less competition, and if you can do it right, and work with an architect that has experience with safety and permits, HDLC. They are on a first name basis with these people. They know how to talk that language, and I don't have those conversations. I don't worry about that. I know that my architect, who's extremely talented, it will be able to Well, first of all, she's going to design it in a way that complies, right? So like, I don't worry about that. And then if there is some sort of issue, she's going in to handle it, right? So it's really all just about team building and making sure that you've got everyone in the right place. Like I view myself as like a producer, right, or a conductor. Like I want to support the team so that they can do their best job.
That makes sense. So how do you feel about the market currently? Are you confident on the development side to develop and throw it for resale, or what's your gut telling you about where we are right now?
Yeah, I feel it depends. I mean, it's all location dependent, real estate, right? It's like location, location, location. But I'm very bullish on the historic core of New Orleans. In Orleans Parish, I know a lot of people in this room probably don't feel the same way. But so I can't speak to really Jefferson at all. Although Old Jefferson, I feel pretty strongly about, just because it sort of blends, the historic elements that I like, but also, is in Jefferson Parish. I feel good about the market, on the realtor side, it seems like things are picking up. As long as the properties are renovated properly and have solid finishes and are not overpriced for what they are, they're going to move, if it's done right. The properties that are sitting usually need a ton of work. People want turnkey right now. Interest rates are high-ish, right? And so they don't want to purchase a property and then have to borrow more money to do work, right? They want someone which is great because I love doing that. So let me do it, and I'll give you a finished product that you're going to love and is professionally designed, and you don't have to think about anything once you move in.
So your buyer clients, especially investors, what type of concessions are you coaching them to ask for? Because as a room full of investors, we're on the sales side.
Yeah.
So if we can kind of hear what those conversations sound like to, number one, when we buy, like you tell us on a purchase, we need to budget for, X amount of thousands of dollars for concessions for either rate buy down or insurance. What are you coaching your clients on to ask for to make these deals work, especially with the financing if they're limited but want turnkey properties?
Yeah, so I can tell you what I would do if I were buying on the MLS for a renovation project, and then I can tell you what I do with my clients. Most of my clients are purchasing turnkey properties, right? So I'm a realtor with McHenry Residential. We focus on higher end luxury real estate. Most of the stuff that my clients are purchasing is done already. But we live in New Orleans. Done can still be renovated, 5 years ago, and there's still knob and tube for some reason. And so, for instance, I have a friend that's under contract, great place in Bayou St. John, but there's knob and tube, and I'm not going to talk about that one. So, a different property, I would say, get invoices, right? You do due diligence, use a great inspector, right?
And home inspector, you mean on the buy side?
You're buying. Use a great home inspector. They're going to tell you in the wrap up what the issues are. So even before I get the inspection report, I'm calling those not my subs, but I'm calling the specialists for each of those items to have them come back out and give me an invoice or an estimate on what it's going to cost to fix that issue, right? And then we're asking for it, and if they don't want to do it, then we have a conversation. But I think if something is discovered during inspections that was not disclosed beforehand, I think it's totally fair game to ask for it.
Yeah.
To be fixed.
As a developer, do you call out a home inspector before hitting the market to try to pressure test what another inspector might find?
Absolutely. So when I finish a project, I'm calling Axelrad because I like them a lot and have a great relationship with them, and I think they're very. That's
a home inspector.
It's a home inspector.
Axel, what's the name?
Axelrad.
Okay.
Axelrad and Associates, and yeah, I want them to beat me up. I want to know everything that they're going to pick out, or that if a buyer's going to pick out, because like, I want to deal with it now before I'm on the market. You know, I don't want to be dealing with it and then fall out of contract. If I finish a project, I want to close on it ASAP. So, you know, there's no reason to, like, I want to build the best product possible. And I want my buyers to be happy. And so I want to make sure that they are getting what I'm selling them. Right. And like, you know, mistakes, like things happen. Right. And so that's why we have inspectors, but I want to know about it beforehand.
Yeah. And are you sharing that report, or is that just you wait till the buyer gets their own inspector?
No, I mean, get your own inspector. That's on y'all. But no, I'm definitely, because I'm going to fix it before they come through.
Gotcha.
Right.
So it shouldn't even come up on the inspector
right.
report.
Yeah.
Yeah. As we wrap up, one of our other guests, Andre Lewis, talked about quantifying your time as a developer, right? So as on the development side, are you putting a line item to pay yourself during projects, or are you doing it kind of how we all do it and hold our breath to make our money after sales?
Yeah, I make it at the sale.
You okay?
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what that would look like, paying myself during the project. I mean, does that?
Some people
do they do that out of the bank financing?
I have no clue, but I think what he was saying is a lot of flippers overlook how much time they do spend on the phone with Home Depot, going to Home Depot, having these conversations. So wherever you could quantify or earn money for your time, you can. So I was just saying, as far as your scope of work as a consultant and as a developer, are there areas that you've either seen on other people's scopes of work or on yours where you can kind of pay yourself in between a project, especially on the big ones?
No.
Not yet?
I mean, not yet. That's something, you know, if I'm doing a project for someone else, then there's qualifying events, right? So just like a GC would get, so there's like open wall inspection, right? Getting paid, paying the GC, right? I pay my GC, but weekly, but I have invoiced to my clients on qualifying events. That's going to change. I'm going to start going to bi-weekly because it's just there are hiccups that happen from the city or whatever that I can't control, and so like we want to invoice for work completed. But yeah, I mean, that's the only way on that side. On the development side, I mean, it's like, no, you gotta roll the dice and but you reap the rewards usually. If you've done your homework and you've assembled the right team, you're gonna be successful.
And for the flippers in the room, what tools are you using, either apps or software, that's helping you project manage right now?
Oh God. I should be a lot better at this. I use Monday.com.
Okay, that's good.
I just hired an assistant, and she's been better. Like, I send her everything that I think about in WhatsApp. She puts it into Monday. I try to review it. She'll send me a list of things in the morning. I mean, that's been really helpful. If you don't have an assistant, use Monday.com and like create it's really easy. It's like a doing, done list, and just move it through.
And Monday is a project management software.
Project. So it's like Asana or Confluence or Jira or whatever. I like the interface. But yeah, I mean, the most important tool I have is my spreadsheet. For flips. And honestly, I don't know where I found it, like on the internet somewhere, and I've done so many, changes, and my business partners have made so many changes, and we've got it really dialed in that, if I'm hitting the number that I'm looking for, which is I want to make 20% return on my cost, I'm doing the deal.
Yeah.
So that's what I aim for. I don't, I have not had to fudge it yet and get below that number. fortunately, it's every time it's come out way ahead of that. So
Good. We are about to take questions from the crowd. What advice, before we do, what advice does 2025 Oliver give to the 2020 Oliver? Bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, $12 an hour. What do you tell that guy?
I mean, just keep with it. There's not a lot that I would change. I feel like I've been really blessed. The business is hard. Like, it can be really hard, and stressful. Just keep grinding.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, I mean, it was hard at times. You got to do it in the mornings, do it at night. But it's a very rewarding journey.
Good stuff. Questions?
Yes. Pardon me? So to get a short-term rental in Orleans Parish, and you'll want to confirm this on the website, they were allowing 3 per block square, and so if you wanted to apply for a short-term rental, they put your name in a lottery. They've gone down to 1 per block square now, so it's like most of the squares are taken up, right? But you still, I guess, if 2 people on the block square were to apply at the same time, you would go to a lottery. Not super well versed on it. Yes.
During your presentation, you mentioned the importance of your team.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned your architect a number of times. Do you mind telling us who that person is?
Yeah, sure. Lacey Wotering, Archetype is her firm. She's amazing, and she's on the Westbank. So, Wotering. Hope she doesn't mind. I'm sure she won't.
Next question. All right.
When you underwrite the deals,
Yes.
on the historic tax credits, you underwrite them as just the deal itself, and anything you get is laying out?
That is a great question. Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. The deal has to work without the credits. Great question.
Yeah.
Okay, on your projects that you say that you're partnering with, the 4 units, how is that usually funded, and what's the profit share breakup?
Oh man, that's like kind of personal. No. So it's changed on these particular deals. Well, I don't know. Do you want? What do you think? Yeah, it depends on what you're bringing to the table. Like if you're bringing all the money and the bank relationships, then well, let's talk. And I don't have any financial risk, but yeah, it just depends. You have to give up more when you start, and you have to give up less when you've got a successful track record.
Steve, you had a question? Oh, John.
John, what's up?
First, I want to say thank you for saving these historic houses. You and I have talked on numerous occasions. I love the work you guys do. I can't tell you, you probably hear this, but for the room, I get a lot of people that come to me when they're like, I got this historic house, and I love everything about it, except for the HDLC is breathing down my neck because they won't let me change like literally everything. So like, I'm like, don't buy this house if you want to change everything. So thank you for not changing everything. You've given me some advice for underwriting your kind of deals because they are very different from other deals. So kind of in that same vein of like what you can and can't do. What can you share with other wholesalers or investors that are looking to underwrite these deals? They're very different than like a Metairie flip.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say that like put construction costs at like $200 a square foot, and yeah, I mean it's very deal specific, right? Because you might need to make it's gonna be very deal specific, but yeah, basic 200 square foot. Retail is going to be way more than that, right? 200 is probably pretty general. Like, some people might be able to do better because they run their own crew or whatever. but you're spending a lot on materials, and you know, you need nicer finishes, you need higher end appliances, and the smaller the building, obviously, the more per square foot you're gonna have to spend. The larger it is, the less you're gonna have to spend per square foot. But I think that's a good rule of thumb. You know, don't charge more because it qualifies for tax credits. Like the purchaser is going to be the one that may or may not get those. Like make sure that the deal works for you, just as with your normal numbers. And know your numbers. Like nothing is like you have to know construction costs and after repair value, and like what the fair market value is for a property in that condition, to be able to market it effectively to real buyers, like, you know, people that actually buy the properties, you know.
Steve?
I was gonna say I love that you do the work totals now, the laboring thing, right? I'm a big Robert case that you rule number one is the rich don't work for money. You should work to learn. So I think that's such an awesome move.
Yeah, I would have done it for free. I'm sure that he paid me so that he could tell me to do stuff that I wouldn't have done. I'm like thinking about adding an intern over the summer, and I was like, why am I going to pay him? And my wife was like, because, you know, you want him to do X, Y, Z. And I was like, okay, good point. Anyway, hope he doesn't watch this.
Yeah. So how can we get in touch with you, Oliver? What's the ways that wholesalers can get in touch with you?
Yeah.
Realtors that have leads in historic district. How can we get in touch with you?
Yeah, so I am looking for anything that's historic, distressed, you know, in the Irish Channel, Uptown, Bayou St. John for sure. So if you have something that fits that bill, shoot me an email, Oliver at Wisteria Properties with Wisteria with a Y, properties.com. It's on the back of this dude's shirt. And
just spell it real quick for YouTube.
WYSTERIA Properties.
So Oliver at Wisteria Properties.
.com.
All right.
Yeah, and you can also go to the website, look at our portfolio, see what we've worked on. I'm also, you know, opportunistically buying commercial properties. Just bought a warehouse. You know, if you got something that's got some meat on the bone, call me or email me. Don't call me.
Gotcha. All right. Well, everybody, put your hands together for Oliver. Thanks for coming up. Oliver, Steve, you can come up. All right.